We have people leaving early, so I want to get through this as quick as we can. Item 16, we have got our 21-22 Arts and Culture Regional Work Programme. So I want to welcome our ladies, tēnā koutou katoa, and I'll leave it to Justin, to Emily. Emily, congratulations on the role that you've got now in regards to the team. So I'll leave it to you. I will move, and Councillor Young second this particular item, so it's on the table now for discussion. Kia ora. Tēnā koe.
Kia ora koutou, ko Emily Trent taku ingoa, e mahi ana o he Head of Arts, Culture and Heritage, mo te tari o Connected Communities e Auckland Council. Tēnā koutou katoa. So we're here today to present the FY22 Regional Arts and Culture Work Programme for PACE Committee approval. We take the report as read, and we'd like to give you a brief overview of the content and then answer any questions. But before we get in, I'd just like to introduce those here with us. Yes.
Kia ora koutou, ko Justine Haves toku ingoa. Kia ora.
Kia ora koutou, ko Jay toku ingoa.
Kia ora koutou, ko Hayley Walters toku ingoa.
Kia ora. So we held a drop-in session on Monday, the 28th of June for PACE committee members ahead of today's meeting. And we'd like to thank Deputy Mayor Cashmore and Councillor Bartley for their attendance and participation. So turning to the report, we're presenting a work program which is focused on providing access to arts and cultural experiences for Tamaki Makaurau. Table 1 summarizes the items for approval today. So the first investment area outlined is for our regional creative programs, which includes signature events and festivals which play a critical role in supporting and providing access to arts and culture experiences. So you'll probably be aware of all the activity in our city right now around celebrating Matsuriki, which is one of our signature experiences enabled by this investment. This year also sees new budget available for City Centre Public Art via the City Centre targeted rate. And Table 2 outlines anticipated increase in funding that will become available over the next 4 years through this fund. Investment in public art includes two main areas. The first is the Regional Public Art Program, supporting the scoping, development, and delivery of new works of public art. And the second element supports arts collection and asset management functions, which include renewals and maintenance of our existing collection of over 400 regional works. The last activity area, regional funding, refers to the non-contestable funding that supports creative partners Te Tuhi and Q Theatre to deliver a high-quality public program of contemporary arts and culture services to the community. You'll remember that the redistribution within the funding envelope for Q Theatre was approved at F&P in February of this year. And Table 4, titled Other Regional Funding Programs on page 6, is for your information only and is included to give you a sense of overall activity. So overall, we're seeing a return to pre-emergency budget levels of support and investment and corresponding levels of activity for the sector and region. We're confident that this is a program that we can deliver within our funding and resourcing. Thank you for your time, and we'd welcome any questions.
Kapai, look, this particular item is straightforward as well, and don't forget with the Q Theatre, it's within existing budgets, and we've had a discussion through that as well. So look, I'm going to open up for any pātai. Councillor Cooper first. And
thank you, and thanks for the report. It is about Q Theatre, so can somebody just tell me how we're monitoring whether that is value for money for the region in terms of what they're delivering, and how long are we going to keep doing this?
Kia ora, and thank you for your question through the chair. So as you will perhaps remember from the Finance and Performance Committee meeting earlier this year, and in the report that was provided there, we are taking a phased approach, and so the year that's been was phase 1, and we're now moving into phase 2, where we are supporting Q Theatre to shift their performance and monitor their performance, and continuing to assess options for sustainable service delivery. And so that's through the relationship management that we take, and so we are actively engaged with the leadership team there to do that through metrics and various measures. But in terms of the term of this partnership, it is a long-term partnership. They're one of our key creative partners in the region for performing arts.
Second part of the question, so do we have a time limit on how long we keep funding it in relation to whether it's delivering or not? Because, I mean, they've had a lot of issues. They haven't been sustainable. I mean, they're not sustainable without this funding. So is there a point where we look at it again and say, is this worth our investment? That's what I was asking.
Thank you for the question. Through the chair, the term that we are currently working through, which was indicated at the Finance and Performance meeting, is that we're working through to June 24 in this next phase, and that will be another moment where we assess the type of relationship or the type of ways that we're working with them, and looking to shift to monitoring the performance less so than supporting. But in terms of the value they bring to the city, I think that's what we're seeing through the measures and metrics that we are working with them on. Thank you.
If no further questions, Pātai, I'm going to then go into comments. Oh, Pātai?
This might be in the category of my lazy web questions, sorry. But as we've got the art team here, kia ora koutou katoa, I just wondered if you could let us know what has happened to the artwork in O'Connell Street that came from this program that has disappeared.
Kia ora, thank you for your question. Through the chair, just to respond on that, so the artwork has been temporarily removed while there's some upgrade work happening on the building that the artwork is attached to. So we foresee that coming back in the near future. I don't quite have the detail on exactly when that is, but I'm happy to come back to you to advise.
Thank you, Chair. And just a little reminder that around we don't have a CBD anymore, so when we're looking at our investment in the city centre, our city centre residents always appreciate the reference being to the city centre. It's kind of a mixture in the report, but just a little, just my kind of, I have to say it as the ward councillor. Kia ora.
Kia ora, thank you, that's noted.
Councillor Walker and then Councillor Fletcher.
Sure, I just wanted to make a comment about Q Theatre in case people were...
Sorry, Councillor Walker, is that, we haven't reached our comments yet.
I thought you had.
No,
Okay.
no, what had happened was Councillor Coombe asked the question while we're still here, but you'll be the first if it's a comment, and so if that's okay with you? Kia ora. Councillor Fletcher, Pātai, and then...
Kia ora. I would like to pose, in light of the question that is a very good question raised by Councillor Cooper, and following on from the Finance Committee deliberations, I think I don't want to see ongoing tension in and around these sorts of issues that perhaps to some speak of inequities across the region. But can you help me understand from a policy sense within the team that you currently have, how one evaluates the need for different types of theatre in the arts and cultural space? For instance, at the time when this council made the decision to invest in the ASB theatre, and because that was going to be down on the waterfront, that had a valuation which showed that it was catering to a different need, a different audience. What current work that is reflected in this regional funding that we're considering today draws on those evaluations of the types of theatre and the types of needs that, you know, Q sits in its 600 seated, you know, whatever it might be, vis-a-vis, you know, an argument that could be posed by Councillor Darby into the future over what might happen to St James, you know, where it might, if we suddenly had a rush of blood to the head and some money, where that might sit. I think it's really important that we're drawing in a policy sense from evidence and data on what is actually required moving forward. Could I ask if that is some body of work that's readily available? I'm sorry, it's not a great question.
Thank you for the question, and through the chair, I'm just thinking about how we can answer that question. I guess what we're dealing with in this report is historic arrangements that we're putting forward for approval for an additional term. So it's obviously important that we understand the unique conditions around each of the operating entities that we deal with, and the work that we are doing with Q, and we're very much seeing it as a partnership with Q at this stage, is to understand what their unique value is and therefore what that represents in terms of return. So it's really important that we undertake that in any instance with any entity and understanding their unique circumstances.
Mr Chairman, I think it is important that we look at it in a historical context, but we also need to, through this committee, moving forward, you know, doing our own stock take on what we have, what the needs are likely to be for this part of the council, you know, whether it's the civic theatre that we have and the investment that has been made historically, but what its role might be moving forward. I just feel, given the importance of the whole arts and cultural sector, given the importance that it's had in a CCO sense with the merging with Auckland Unlimited, that we must have a better appreciation, just as we are going through the Stadia strategy now. We also need to be able to do that same and apply the same logic to the application of other, you know, other public buildings. And so rather than there being an awkwardness or a tension in terms of wondering how long these things may be going on for, that we can actually have a living document now that informs us rather better of where the audiences are likely to be for these facilities, and in addition to other facilities right across the region. And that was work that was commenced a few years ago when we were looking at community facilities, not just necessarily arts and cultural facilities, but facilities across the region. And it would be interesting to know where, you know, that inventory got to. But perhaps that's something that we could pursue on another occasion.
Yeah, so Councillor Fletcher, I mean, Liz Civil's team is doing Toi Whitiki. Toi Whitiki is our strategy in regards to arts. What she's also looking at is how Q Theatre or the other theatres would fit within that strategy. Bearing in mind that Toi Whitiki, the strategy itself, is not only Auckland Council strategy, it's an arts strategy that involves Creative New Zealand.
No, I realise.
Yeah, so that's the work that we're doing currently with the review of Toi Whitiki, is around having a look at our institutions we currently have within Tāmaki Makaurau, not only those that are either funded or owned by Auckland Council, but those like the arts and, the ASB, and everything else. So that work is being done with Liz. So and it's coming back to this committee. I think, Claudia, I stand corrected, in the next either August, September or November. It's coming back around that review. And I know that Claudia and I were just talking, so Liz will end up getting a heads up in regards to the comments you've made and the partai.
Liz Civil is a very experienced officer, but it will be really important that that report can contain, in the description of the theatres that we have, and as you say, it's irrespective of whether they're owned by council or not. You know, it's about as we are doing with Stadia at the moment, looking at, what is the best use and what the needs will be going into the future. But she will be well placed to be able to identify where the capacity issues will fit in a strategy moving forward. Thank you.
Yeah, we've already had a discussion around the review with Toi Whetiki, and that was one of the comments that we made with Claudia as well around doing that work, around where they fit, how they fit, and that's work will definitely get done. And I know that Claudia will end up talking to Liz again, reinforcing the conversation we've already had. So thank you. If there's no more, pātai, matua kake.
Kia ora, just interested in these multi-year kind of commitments and what is our, is it continuing to be a grant or a fund, or is it a service agreement that we're building into for these multi-year commitments? More in the context of how easy is it or how difficult is it for a new organisation to crack into this club? And so my question is what is the out clause if performance, or if they're not, or our priorities have changed? Is there one?
So just in relation to that, because as you can see, it was the finance and performance that committed this and approved the funds. So I'll take that back to the arts team around the funding, because it was legacy council monies that ended up putting in. This is why we approved it at finance and performance, because it was within the budget.
Through the chair, which is why I haven't made it a specific organisational question. It's the general question of how does one crack into this club, and two, how does one get out of it if their performance or program or if our priorities change? Are we committed for the 3-year term and so on?
So I'll get the team, as well as when we ended up putting it through, to come back to you with that.
With all due respect, Mr. Chair, that never happens, all right? I've asked these questions before, it doesn't come back to me, so.
Yeah, well, I've done that undertaking, and I remember one of the items previously, and I got back to you with that because I said that I would get back to you with it. And so I'll do the same here with this particular one, or the pātai that you've asked. I will definitely get back to you around that. So if there's no more, to our ladies, ngā mihi kia koutou katoa, thank you so much. I'm now going to open it up for comments. Just want to welcome Councillor Darby, and earlier was Councillor Newman. So thank you, ladies. We're just going to get into comments now, and to start us off is Councillor Walker. So thank you so much. Councillor Walker.
I just wanted to speak in support of the Q Theatre. Q Theatre is somewhat unique. It's not just a venue, it's also a company, a performing operation that particularly engages in bringing on new artists, performances, both Pākehā, also iwi. It forms an incredibly important part of the fabric of venues as it goes to spaces for things like the Auckland Festival, for example, and a variety of other things. And locationally, it's very important for this part of town in terms of re-energising the art scene that's necessary around here as compared to Auckland Theatre that's downtown. It was identified in the strategy. There's been a great deal of work and information that councillors have received around the important part that Q Theatre has in the community. And councillors should know that there has been a effectively significant subsidy, I'd almost call it that, by people in the arts community for Q Theatre for some time. That includes people like Jennifer Ward-Leyland, Michael Hurst, and a range of others who have sunk an enormous amount of effort and commitment into that venue, as has Auckland Council. Obviously, at this point in time, there have been issues because of COVID, and that's disappointing, but I'm sure that Q Theatre will re-emerge like a phoenix and be better than ever. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. Any more kōrero? If not, I'm going to put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Move on to our sports ones, and we're in